Hello, peace be upon you all, dear angels of God. Welcome back for another episode of The Living Jesus. I'm your host, Saiha, and I'm here with my reoccurring guest, Kevin. Thank you very much for joining me again today, Kevin.
Thank you very much, Saiha, for inviting me, and especially because this is a very fascinating topic, if you ask me. Yeah,
it is very fascinating. So now we covered a lot of the Bible and we covered some Gnostic scriptures, but we wanted to dive into some early Christian sects that existed very close to the time of Jesus, because now it's 2,000 years later and we have a lot of different sects, denominations of Christianity. They all have different beliefs, but what I wanted to bring Kevin with me to talk specifically about the early Christians and what it is that they believed and what happened to them, because I think that the more fresh the religion is, the least corrupted that it should be, right? Like I feel like the people who lived closer to the time of Jesus, perhaps they were more privy to first-hand accounts, or as close to first-hand accounts as perhaps like 2,000 years later, when the world has moved on, and a lot of different battles happen, crusades. A lot of the early Christians were like killed off and a lot of their writings were destroyed. So I feel like if we want to know more about Christianity, we should always look to the early Christians and what it is that they believed.
Yes, I think that also it is quite well known right now in the history of Christianity that basically over time, when as Christian history progressed, there was a lot of persecutions of not only pagans, not only witch hunts and all this stuff, but in reality you have the early Christian churches fighting against each other, right? Not being in agreement with one another. I mean, if we see the state of the world today, the state of Christianity today, we find a lot of disagreements between Christian denominations. We find in them a lot of disagreements. They don't agree on pretty much any single verse of the Bible, right? There is a lot of theology and a lot of understandings. The same verse is used by one sect or by one denomination to mean one thing, and then you have the next denomination saying no, it means absolutely the complete opposite of that verse. And it is a situation in which I think for a lot of Christians, and especially for Christians who maybe, when you convert to Christianity, there's in Western societies, I think that it is a quite common occurrence that a person in their youth, they get away from Christianity. They start doing their own thing. They start living life and being crazy for a while. And then at some point when they are older, they are more mature. They start thinking, and and this is clearly something that happened to me, for example, right? When I matured and I became like more aware of things, I realized, okay, God has to exist, and if God exists, I better align myself to whatever he wants me to do, because he seems to be really important, right? So
exactly. This is what happened with me, and I think that this happens with a lot of true seekers of God, right? So today I wanted to specifically dive into one very interesting sect of Christianity that is maybe not very well known amongst modern day Christians, and that is Manichaeism. The religion of the prophet Mani, and we do believe in the prophet Mani. We do believe that he's a true prophet of God. However, 2000 after after 2,000 years after, he came and went, we also believe that religion was also corrupted at this point. But we wanted to look just at the beliefs that they held, yes, and what happened with them, and some history about Mani and his sect, and to find more information just for educational purposes, not yes, to say that everything is true or everything is false, but just to look at the religion of Manichaeism and then find out more information about that.
Yes, and just to finish what I was saying, it is very usual that, for example, a 25-year-old converts to Christianity, they start looking into it, they start reading the Bible, but they are not necessarily aware of the Christian history, right? But what I want you to understand is, you see right now that there is a lot of variety in Christianity anyways, even though most of the Christian denominations, they follow the same book, they follow the Bible, and they basically believe in the same things, more or less, right? But what you have to understand is that in the first centuries of Christianity, and this was not like a short-lived, this was very, very long, like all through the Middle Ages. There's a long span of time in which Christians are also very diverse, but not only diverse in the sense that they are interpreting the Bible in the same way. There's Christian sects that don't believe in the Bible at all, for example. They don't. There are Christian texts that are written specifically, according to historians, to be a counter weight to what's written in the Bible, because there's communities who believe that the Council of Nicaea and the things that happen in the Council of Nicaea are a betrayal to true Christianity, for example, and they start writing books in order to give like a last testament of this is what we believe. And you have a lot of history of the mainstream nowadays, what we see nowadays as mainstream Christianity. The institutions that propagated that, they propagated it through a lot of violence, through a lot of persecution, and through a lot of book burnings, right? They burned a lot of texts that belong to a lot of different Christian denominations from the beginning that didn't believe necessarily that the Bible is the absolute and incorrupt word of God, but really believe in gospels like the gospel of Thomas and the gospel of Philip and the gospel of Mary Magdalene and many
Barnabas.
Different, yes,
I mean,
Barnabas.
There's so many gospels,
yes.
And if you actually look at, if you actually do a little search, in the archives of the internet, you will find that there's a lot more books that were written by Christians and by different denominations, different, disciples, different prophets who claimed to be disciples of Jesus, and they had their own message from Jesus and then they have entire sects and religions and denominations, since then. And now you actually go look at that, and then you're, as a Christian, you're sitting there and you're thinking, oh, I thought that this canon of 66 books and letters, I thought that was it. But when you actually find and you actually dig a little deeper and investigate, you will find so many texts and different, especially now recently, because they found codexes and the Dead Sea Scrolls and everybody's talking about the books of Enoch, the book of Adam and Eve, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene is extremely popular nowadays, the book of Thomas, all of these books, they're very popular now, and they're only popular in places that have already realized that the church and the churches right now are extremely corrupted, and they are completely false and go against everything that Jesus stood for.
And it is interesting because if you think of, for example, evangelical and Protestant versions of Christianity, one thing that you need to understand as well is the fact that when the Protestant Reformation happened, there was no access to these books, right? the Nag Hammadi library, it was not discovered yet, so we didn't have access to these gospels that were kept secret until 1945. And even though they have been out there since 1945, of course, they haven't yet penetrated the collective consciousness of the people. So it is really important for you to understand that, for example, if you're a Protestant Christian or an evangelical or Pentecostal Christian, one of the things that you really, really need to sit and realize is, okay, we don't believe in the Catholic Church. However, it is mainly the Catholic Church and it was mainly Catholic tradition that brought us the Bible and that told us who is a heretic in the first centuries of Christianity and who's not. So if they are corrupt, then why should I really hold as a doctrine of, as an article of faith that actually the Bible that they brought us is the only true truth that comes from God? Actually, if you are skeptical about the narrative of Catholicism, you should really look into the Gnostic Gospels and the Manichaean Gospels,
of course,
because it's also this is also like Manichaeism. I think one of the main problems that they have right now is that they are not even considered to be Christian at all, right? They are not even among the Gnostic movements. They are not really given like the same place, right? It's like Manichaeism is seen as a different religion.
That's really crazy.
That's really,
because he claimed to be a disciple of Jesus.
Yes.
He was the disciple of the light,
Yes.
right? So he was also called, in some translations of his name, he was also called the Comforter, and there's a lot of ambiguity about his birth and about his life, where he came from, even when he was born. There's so much around this prophet that is very interesting and very mysterious, right?
There's a very beautiful story about Mani, for example, in his early years, in which basically he, at 12 years old, he is told to go into an occultation inside a cave, okay? And then at 12 years old, he enters into that cave and starts praying to God, becoming closer to God, and then there is a spirit that comes to him, right? And this spirit is constantly teaching him things and telling him things and making him basically elevate spiritually. And then and this spirit tells him, wait until you're ready. I'm going to tell you when you're ready, and when you're ready, you have to go out and preach to the world, basically. So it happens to be that it's 12 years altogether that Mani spends in that cave, preparing himself to become whatever he's going to become. And then at 24, he is commanded by this spirit, and this spirit reveals to him that he's actually his twin spirit, right? He's or his spiritual twin, something along these lines, right? And this spirit tells him you have to go and proclaim, and you're an apostle of Christ, basically, and then you're going to basically preach the gospel to the people. Right, and he starts preaching, and he has a very interesting preaching. He has a preaching that basically bridges a lot of gaps, and he goes very far. He goes from China to Dublin, and in these long travels that he does, he connects the dots between a lot of different Christian. Not only the Christianity that we know and we understand today to be like an inheritor of the Jewish belief, but he's also saying, guys, Buddha was a prophet, Zoroaster was a prophet, Plato was a prophet, and I am one that is sent now to you as a prophet. Yeah,
he was saying that there's a continuation after Jesus Christ.
Yes,
and this is in the Bible. In the Bible, Jesus, when he's talking to the Pharisees, the evildoers, he tells them, I'm sending you prophets and teachers and sages, and you will crucify them, and you will kill them, and you will you will persecute them from town to town.
Exactly.
So the thing is that we find the story of Manny, like, extremely interesting, because now he's claiming to be a disciple of Jesus. He's saying that there's a continuation of prophethood after Jesus Christ, and he's one of those.
Yeah. And I mean, if we believe that Jesus, for example, he went to the desert, and he stood there for 40 days, you know, praying and fasting. And after 40 days, this experience was so big for him that after this, he goes and starts making miracles and starts, you know, he in this 40 days, he beats the devil and does a lot of this stuff, Jesus, right? How about being 12 years, you know, in hiding and in seclusion and in spiritual striving, right? How about that? Like, if 40 days are able to bring this super powers in Jesus, right? What can 12 years do if he's actually, like, if you have to consider, as Sadiq said, like, if you want me to consider that perhaps your version of Christianity is the truth, you have to also be open to the possibility that perhaps Manny was actually a true messenger sent by Jesus, because Jesus said that there after him there would be prophets.
Exactly. And
right?
and the followers of Manny also, you know, they were persecuted.
Yes.
You know, Manny himself, you know, what happened to him was extremely horrific. You know, I guess I can, you know, go ahead and mention that is that Manny, the way when he was preaching all of these and he was traveling around, he made enemies, and one of them was the Persian king of his time, and he was actually skinned alive. And then his, you know, the skin, they basically stuffed it with straw and they put it on the cross, and then that was, like, by his followers, it was called the Passion of Manny, right? The Passion of the Illuminator, because he was so brutally murdered, and then you know, they also beheaded him and stuck his head on a spear, but they did horrible things to Manny. And then this is also where this word mannequin comes from, because it's like a lifeless body on display, right? And it's very horrible, and this is something that was prophesied by Jesus Christ, that it would happen to his true disciples, because he said that his true disciples will be crucified and persecuted from town to town. Manny was traveling around. He claimed to have revelation. He claimed to be a disciple, and he was crucified. You know, I mean, technically, they did worse to him than crucifixion. And also the same thing happened. I mean, the same similar thing happened to his followers. You know, they murdered them. They destroyed their writings. They persecuted them. They ran them off from their countries. The same thing happened. So we have now, like, if you just look at the characteristics of a true disciple of Jesus and then his prophecies, we see characteristics in many that would prove him to be a true disciple of Jesus.
Yes, and I think that also one of the things that is very worthy of being mentioned is that for a long time, Manichaeism was basically the biggest contender to what is nowadays like Western Christianity. Like what we understand today to be the tradition that went, like, you know, the Catholics and the Orthodox in the Middle Ages, and that and eventually developing what we have today. Well, in the Middle Ages specifically, Manichaeism was basically, I was thinking right now that Manichaeism, a way to understand it is that in those times, Manichaeism represented for Christianity what Islam is representing right now, in the sense of this is the most expanded version of Jesus that is not the Christian version of Jesus, right? So right now, I think the successor in this sense of Manichaeism would be Islam as the biggest contender to what version of Jesus is actually the true one. And I think that's very important to note. And one of the things that is also important to know is that Mani, he came to Iraq. He's considered to be actually like a Persian prophet, but in reality he was born in Iraq, according to the texts. It is true that he had a long, a more important preaching in Persia, but he was born in Iraq. He's an Iraqi prophet. And one of the things that is really interesting, I ask you to put the first slide, please, on the screen, is that we have a story of how Christianity went to the Arab world, right? So we have a very important story that is already is still believed by Catholics, it's still believed by Orthodox Christians, and it's not very well known by Protestant and evangelical and Pentecostal Christians, but it is important in the first centuries of Christianity, which is the story of King Abgar of Edessa. Okay, and this story is the story of how and by the way, this is something that is right now in popular culture. It is not that well known, but it should be, because this is an example which is considered to be authentic for Christians. And this is the only example we have of Jesus actually writing something with his own hand. Okay, so in the scriptures or in the Bible, you find Jesus like writing some characters in the sand with his finger, but you don't find him writing a letter, writing a book. You don't find him doing these things, right? But in early Christian history, we have this story of how a king that was an Arab king, a king in a city called Edessa, who sent a letter to Jesus, and Jesus responded to him. And I'm going to read the letter of King Abgar to Jesus. He says, Abgar, ruler of Edessa, to Jesus, the good physician who has appeared in the country of Jerusalem. Greeting. I have heard the reports of you and your cures as performed by you without medicines or herbs. For it is said that you make the blind to see and the lame to walk, that you cleanse lepers and cast out impure spirits and demons, and that you heal those affected with lingering disease, and raise the dead. And having heard all these things concerning you, I have concluded that one of two things must be true. Either you are God, and having come down from heaven, you do these things, or else you who does these things are the Son of God. I have therefore written to you to ask you if you would take the trouble to come to me and heal all the ill which I suffer. For I have heard that the Jews are murmuring against you and are plotting to injure you. But I have a very small yet noble city, which is great enough for us both. So there you have the letter of Abgar to Edessa. And this icon that you're seeing on screen is actually like a representation of when the request of the king is fulfilled. Because what is happening? This king is saying, okay, Jesus, I believe in you. I actually think that you perhaps are God, or perhaps you're the Son of God, because you have all this power. So I want you to come here. I am sick. I want you to heal me, please. And I know that the Jews don't like you very much. I know that they are murmuring and they are trying to kill you. So what about you come here to my kingdom, and here I'm telling you, you will be received.
He said, "This my kingdom is small, but it's big enough for both of us."
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very kind. He's a good king. He's benevolent, and then Jesus,
he's a believing king.
Yeah, he's a believer in that Jesus is a Son of God. Like, he really believes in his power. He has faith. So Jesus, he likes his faith. So he tells him, okay, I will send you some of my disciples, right? So So then he. According to this narration, right, Jesus actually promises this king that he will heal him, that he will, he will not come, but he will send his disciples to come and heal him.
Yes, exactly. So Jesus writes a letter according to this story, and he says, "Blessed are you who has believed in me without having seen me, for it is written concerning me that they who have seen me will not believe in me, and that they who have not seen me will believe and be saved. But in regard to what you have written me, that I should come to you, it is necessary for me to fulfill all things here for which I have been sent. And after I have fulfilled them, thus be taken up again to him that sent me. But after I have been taken up, I will send you one of my disciples, that he might heal you, that he might heal your disease and give life to you and yours.
Wow.
Right? So, well, we have here this king. This king believes in Jesus. Jesus says, congratulations, because those who didn't believe in me saw me. And you have to understand, King Herod wanted to kill Jesus.
Of course.
You know, the kings of the Roman Empire were okay with Jesus being crucified and you know, sent to death.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you have here a king, which is not even a Jew, right? Telling Jesus, hey, please, come, save me. You know, I am willing to let you do here whatever you want to do here in my kingdom. You can do it.
You know, for me, Kevin, I think that it's really important to note something about this particular narration, right? Is that this is a letter from Jesus Christ himself, the Son of God. According to the Christians, he's the Son of God. He's God himself, according to them. And there are narrations and gospels that are written by his hand, apparently, that he himself writes to kings and making promises to them.
Yes.
And that's nowhere to be found in the Christian Bible.
Yeah.
But you know, like, how many letters there are of Paul? I don't understand this. Like, for me, it doesn't make any sense. Why is it that Paul is more important than Jesus Christ himself? Because this is not found in the canonical gospel, you know?
Yeah.
So you have to wonder, you know, as a Christian, like, what else is there that's attributed to Jesus himself, to my Lord, to my God, to my King of Kings, that I don't know about?
Yeah.
So it should encourage you. This should encourage you to go and search and go and look for yourself and go find out, maybe my Lord has said more than what is in my Bible that was compiled by the corrupt church of Catholicism.
Yeah, if you believe
especially
that
as a Protestant, you already believe that they're corrupt. You don't believe in the Pope. You believe that they're like molesting children and doing horrible things, and you believe that they were launching the crusades against the will of God. But then you take their personal interpretation of what you should and shouldn't read. Why is that? It doesn't make any sense. You should go and look at other writings as well to find out, maybe they were hiding something from you, you know, and while they were crusading and murdering all of these different heretics and people who claim to be disciples of Jesus Christ. They were literally murdering people who claimed to be disciples of Jesus, okay? And that had letters of Jesus, in their writings, and perhaps you should go and look at their writings and see what it is that they wrote. But as a side note,
I really don't understand why this story is not more well known in Christian circles, because for example, you have this if you watch the icons that there were in the screen, basically you have this cloth that is present in these icons that has the face of Jesus, right? So this cloth is called the Mandilion of Edessa, right? This is how this relic is known, and basically it is a relic because according to the narrative of Eusebius, who is the one whom we get this story from, he says that actually Jesus sent a disciple many years after he was crucified. He sent a disciple to King Abgar of Edessa, which is weird. It's a little bit weird because he says that this happened in the year 350 after Christ, but it's a little bit odd that this happened at that moment, because of course this king wrote to Jesus in his lifetime, right?
Of course, and Jesus made a promise, and if Jesus is the Son of God, he would never break his promise, right?
So of course, like it seems like the datings of these stories is not precisely completely
it's sketchy
accurate.
For sure.
Yes. So, but anyways, this disciple comes with this cloth, and this is the cloth that you know the story that when Jesus was going to be crucified, and he and one of the women put a cloth in his face to clean him, and the image of Jesus appeared in that cloth. This story, like the Mandilion of Edessa, is supposed to be this cloth. The disciple had it and brought it to King Abgar, and through this he was healed.
Wow!
Yes.
Through the cloth. That's
through the
amazing.
Cloth. Yes.
And you know, according to this narration as well, to the narration about this miraculous healing that was performed by the disciple of Jesus, right? Actually, the king prostrated. The narration states that the king prostrated to the disciple of Jesus.
Yes.
Something very interesting.
Yes, it is very interesting, because this disciple also transfigures in front of him and show basically like his face shines in front of the king, and the king basically falls in prostration to him and allows him basically to do whatever he wants in the kingdom, according to the narrative. And Jesus said, like, because he wants to give him all the gold and all the riches that he wants. And Jesus, the disciple tells him, we have deserted all these things in our previous life. We cannot accept this. But anyways, what is clear in this narration is that also the king allowed him to preach his religion however he wanted. And you know what? Edessa is known as the first kingdom that ever turned Christianity into its official religion. Okay? Wow. So way before the Roman Empire became a Christian kingdom, there is a king who believes in Jesus while Jesus is alive. Jesus sends him a disciple after his death, and this disciple heals, makes a miracle in front of him. The king basically officializes Christianity as their official religion, and is the first kingdom that ever becomes Christian. So this is very interesting, because Edessa is in the Arab world. Okay, and in the Arab world also we have that Manichaeism spread a lot. Like the Manichaeism, one of the places where it spread a lot is outside of the Roman Empire. Okay, so basically, you have the official Roman version of Christianity in the Roman provinces and in the Roman Empire, and then outside of that, you have a lot of these other sects.
Of course, because groups. All of the 12 disciples, the 11 disciples, they were sent into all the earth.
Exactly.
So they went to India and Persia and, everywhere. They were everywhere. And, the only one disciple, right, Simon Peter, the main one, he was primarily in Rome. But all the disciples went everywhere.
Yeah.
Jesus commanded them to preach the gospel to all nations.
Yes.
So they were already spreading the gospel everywhere, and they were forming Christian communities and Christian sects and denominations already.
Yes.
So during that time, there were so many Christian denominations, and we barely, especially the mainstream Christians, we don't know anything about them. So how come? Why don't we know all of these different denominations that happened right after the crucifixion of Jesus?
Yes, exactly. And one of the things that happens right after the crucifixion of Jesus, and it is really interesting, because you know what's the name of the disciple, according to Eusebius, that went to Edessa to cure King Abgar?
I mean, there's different accounts. I think there are different names that he goes by.
Yeah, one of the names that he goes by is Thaddeus. It says he sent Thaddeus, whom was called Judas. Okay, so it is Thaddeus and it is Judas. And by the way, Judas Thaddeus, the disciple of Jesus, in the Catholic iconography, you find him wearing like a medal with the face of Jesus in it, and it actually is a reference to the Mandilion of Edessa. It's kind of like it's kind of like the Catholic Church is trying to portray that this Thaddeus Judas is Judas Thaddeus, the disciple of Jesus, the one who went to
the king and cured him and transformed in front of him, and he prostrated to him. Wow.
But Eusebius actually doesn't claim that it is this Judas Thaddeus. He actually claims that it is one of the 70. Okay, one of the 70 disciples of Jesus. But it is interesting because the name of the apostle is Judas Thaddeus, or Thaddeus Judas, right? And can we put the next slide in there? This is something that also happens very, very, very shortly after the crucifixion of Jesus, the writing of the Gospel of Thomas. Yeah. Okay, according to some historians, the Gospel of Thomas is dated from 40 AD, between 40 AD and 60 AD. This makes it one of the most, actually the earliest Gospel ever written.
Yeah.
Because the Gospel of Mark, which is the oldest Gospel, according to the datation, the earliest datings is around 60 AD. So the Gospel of Thomas, being dated at 40 AD, right? It actually predates the Gospel of Mark. And if you think that...
Yeah, and I mean, me and Tiffany already made an episode about this, and it's also in the Goal of the Wise, and also on the Mahdi Has Appeared YouTube channel. So we're very open about our belief that Jesus, he kept on living. He just, the soul of Jesus, the spirit of Jesus, it left from that body and went to another one, and he actually lived on until 70 AD. And actually that was, at his death, that was the actual destruction of Jerusalem, just like Jesus promised. So after he had died a natural death after that in 70 AD, then the temple was destroyed and all of the Jews were dispersed as a punishment for what they did to their own Lord, right? So just that's very interesting. And during that time, this in 40 is when the Jesus Gospel of Thomas is written.
Yes.
And according to the Gospel of Thomas, it says in there that these are the secret sayings which the living Jesus has spoken, and Didymus, Judas, Thomas inscribed them.
Exactly.
Wow. So this is the same. According to the accounts, if you put in the 2 and 2 together, you actually find that it's very possible that this Judas, Thomas, was actually the disciple that was sent to the king in order to cure him of his disease.
Exactly. So yeah, exactly. It's the same name at least. Right?
Yeah, it's very similar.
It happens, like, you have to understand that 40 AD is just, according to official chronology, 7 years after the crucifixion. According to our understanding of who Jesus was still alive when the Gospel of Thomas was being written. And this is extremely interesting because there's this disciple called Judas, right? That goes to Edessa and cures, and he is basically one of the most successful of the early disciples of Jesus, because none of the 12 disciples managed to convert a whole kingdom into Christianity. But Judas Thaddeus did, or Thaddeus, who is called, Judas, the one that went to Edessa. He did. He is the one. This is really big. This is really big. Again, let me say that again. None of the 12 disciples and Paul himself, they did not succeed in converting a whole kingdom into Christianity in their lifetimes. But this weird, obscure character, Thomas, whom is called, Thaddeus, whom is called Judas, one of the 70 disciples of Jesus, whom we know nothing about him in the Bible or anything, he actually manages to convert a whole kingdom into Christianity. He's the most successful of the disciples of Jesus.
Wow. That's amazing.
Right? So this is really something.
Yeah. And then we actually find another one, which is on the next slide, which is very interesting, right? Because in the time of Christianity, the Romans and the followers of Paul and and all of his friends, they were very adamant about writing all of these books, condemning all of the heretics, all the people that don't agree with our Lord Jesus Christ. They are all deserve death, and they all deserve to, because they're all heretics, and they just write all of these books. You will find them on the internet, all of these books about all of these different heretics. But when you actually read those books, they actually tell a lot of the stories for you. Even though they destroy the writings of a certain denomination or a certain Gnostic sect, and they kill them off, but they still expose their beliefs, what it is that they believe in all of these books about all of these heretics.
Yes.
And one of them actually told on his own self, that Mani was actually directly connected to some of the disciples.
To the
writer
of the Gospel of Thomas. Right, because Cyril of Jerusalem, he says that Mani had 3 disciples, and one of them was called Thomas. And he said, "Let no one read the Gospel according to Thomas, for he is not one of the 12 apostles, but one of the 3 wicked disciples of Mani." Right? So this is very interesting.
That's very interesting, because now we kind of have a connection with the writer of because the living Jesus is the one who was dictating the book of Thomas, right? The living Jesus, and then this Thomas, Judas Thomas, Didier, he has many names, but he is the one writing, writing down what the living Jesus after the crucifixion is writing, and then this person is condemning the same author as a heretic.
Yes,
that's very interesting.
Yes, and well, we have this. This is a gigantic list, if you ask me. If I was a detective trying to find out what happened in the early Christianity, this for me would be like the biggest thing that I have encountered so far. Why? Because it is usually considered that Mani, right? He was born after 200 some years after Jesus. Okay, so he's supposedly a 3rd century writer. However, the Gospel of Thomas, it is supposedly written, according to historians, between 40 and 60 AD. And there is this Cyril of Jerusalem, whom is denouncing the Gospel of Thomas by saying that it was not written by Thomas, the apostle of Jesus, right, one of the 12. He's saying, no, actually, it was written by the apostle, like the disciples of Mani. Thomas, the disciples of Mani. So that means what? That means that the earliest gospel, not only Gnostic gospel, the earliest gospel known, full stop, according to one of the historians of the church, Cyril of Jerusalem, was written by a disciple of somebody whom is supposed to come 200 years after Jesus.
Yeah,
right?
That's really interesting.
It's very interesting. And it also happens to be that this man is called the same name as the man who went and healed the king of Edessa.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and they have other accounts, right? Like from the Gospel of Marmari.
The Acts of Marmari.
The Acts of Marmari.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have the same kind of story. The names are a little different, but we have the same kind of scenario, where we have them visit her and, him and another disciple, with the same name, as this person. Going to a king and healing him and his progeny and converting the whole kingdom. We have the same kind of So
this is incredible. This is incredible. But because what does it mean? It means that one of the most successful versions of Christianity in the Middle Ages and in early Christianity, right? According to what historians seem to be claiming, could have started right after the death of Jesus.
Exactly.
By people who met Jesus. By people who saw Jesus.
Who saw Jesus, who were healed by Jesus, who were his disciples and disciples of many at the same time.
Because the writer of
a huge connection.
The writer of the Gospel of Thomas is claiming to be a first-hand account, first-hand witness, which is not something that we have in the Gospel of Mark and in any of the Gospels. The author of the Gospel of Thomas is claiming to be an eyewitness to the things that happened and that Jesus said. So this is incredible. This is incredible. We believe that all these things should make you at least go and look for the Gospel of Thomas, and your mind will be blown. But also think about the connection between the Gospel of Thomas and Manichaeism, because this is something heavy, and there is way more that we will leave for you to. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
reflect and investigate and read as much as you can. Go and investigate as a Christian, because that's your right as a human being who was given intellect. God didn't give you a mind and an intellect just so you can waste it all your life. So thank you very much, Kevin, for this amazing episode, and thank you for joining us. I hope that we gave you a lot to think about. God bless you all. See you later.
See you.